Hello, sorry I'm late. I was held up by the eldritch entity known as a really comfy bed that I didn't want to get out of. So I am a little late, but I think this game is supposed to be really short, so we should be okay to finish it before I have to go to work still. Yay! But I should still get started right away. So let's see. Dagon is a faithful interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work focused on story and atmosphere. You will not find difficult choices, action sequences, or inventory management here, and movement is limited to progressing through locations along with the plot. Okay.
I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
Interactive elements. And there's trivia. Okay. Guys got canned fish and drugs. Secret? Secrets. Oh, there's little trivia. As the letters, my case is peculiar. I write such things exactly as easily and as rapidly as I would utter the same topics in conversation. Indeed, epistolary expression is with me largely replacing conversation, as my condition of nervous prostration becomes more and more acute. I cannot bear to talk much now, and am becoming as silent as the spectator himself. My loquacity extends itself on paper. Throughout his life, Lovecraft penned around 100,000 letters to his friends and fans, out of which about 10% survive to this day. But his tendency to endless correspondence was a relatively late growth. In youth, I scarcely did any letter writing. Thanking anybody for a present was so much of an ordeal that I would rather have written a 250-line pastoral or 20-page treatise on the rings of Saturn. He'd often skip meals to afford postage. Honestly, oh, yeah, in terms of, is this as in the Eldritch Horror or the deity? It's as in the name of the short story. So it's whatever Lovecraft intended when he named the story. It is so funny that Lovecraft was so obsessed with writing letters to people. This guy would have loved the internet. Lovecraft would have just been on, like, image boards and Reddit 24/7. I can feel it. He could have RP'd with his friends.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
Oh, bro, don't jump.
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate.
Oh, morphine. Hold on. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Yeah. I mean, his life was also hellish because he was scared of everything, so that probably helped.
When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
Morphine entered into use in 19th centuries, was routinely administered to treat severe pain during the American Civil War and World War I. Was also sold without restrictions until 1914. Became more popular after the invention of the hypodermic syringe around 1845. Morphium, after the Greek god associated with dreams. At the time when Dagon was published, morphine abuse known as soldier's disease. Damn, that's crazy that it was called soldier's disease. But guys, it makes you not hurt. What do you mean you're addicted to it?
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider. The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation. So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
Trivia. The Huns were Central Asian nomads who established a dominion in Europe and invaded the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD. They are known as brutal, deadly warriors and masters of quick raids who also developed powerful composite bows, lassos, and early siege weapons. During World War I, the British used the word Hun as a synonym for Germans in order to emphasize their brutality. However, the term originated when the German Emperor Wilhelm II gave a speech to his troops on 27th of July 1900 before they embarked to China. Should you encounter the enemy, he will be defeated. That's not German. I can't do a German accent, I don't think. No quarter will be given. Prisoners will not be taken. Whoever falls into your hands is forfeited. Just as 1,000 years ago, the Huns under the King Attila made a name for themselves, one that even today makes them seem mighty in history and legend. May the name German be affirmed by you in such a way in China. Wow. Wow. That sucks. German Emperor Wilhelm II, you're not a good guy, probably.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time.
Oh, he lost his dang sword. I'm always misplacing stuff, too. We're kind of similar that way.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
Nothing. Whole lot of nothing. Ooh. Oh, the water's pretty, though. Is there any trivia? No.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
I heard that he died from, like, he got really drunk and was given a nosebleed, and then he just, like, passed out and choked on his blood because he was, like, completely unconscious, and it was just going down his throat.
And I began to despair in my solitude.
But I could see him being poisoned, too, because, I mean, big leader dude. A lot of people wanted to fill those shoes. And then they didn't fill those shoes, Lamau, but...
The change happened whilst I slept.
Uh-oh.
Its details I shall never know. For my slumber though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
Yeah, exactly. Don't Attila the Hun yourself. Ooh. Fish.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see.
Well, I guess these are cephalopods, but, you know.
And in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished.
That's so funny. He's like, yeah, I went to like a slimy hell. You might have expected that I was really amazed at this, but actually I was scared.
For there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime, yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Yeah, when I was younger, I used to get really bad nosebleeds. I thankfully don't anymore, but they're definitely a pain in the butt, especially when they just are like not interested in not bleeding anymore. Oh, squelch.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position. Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might. Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
What are you? Just like a blob. Ooh, a little trilobite.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens. As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue. On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
And so boldly we set out.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
Yeah, those are normal fish things. A whale.
That night, I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
I had a dream about a whale this morning. It accidentally crunched a submarine and killed everyone in it, and then it felt bad. And then it, like, went to, like, comfort the family of one of the people that died. I don't know. It was a weird dream. The creator of the Cthulhu mythos and the fictional underwater city of R'lyeh was convinced that life could not exist at the bottom of the ocean because the water pressure would make it uninhabitable. Today we know that stuff totally does live down there, unfortunately. The Mariana snailfish can live about 8,000 meters, more than 2,600 feet, below the ocean surface in never-ending darkness and at hellishly crushing pressures. Upon glancing at the modern photos of deep-sea creatures such as the anglerfish, fangtooth, or the viperfish, and their truly Lovecraftian characteristics, it's not hard to find some irony in this. Yeah, he's like, don't worry, guys. I know I'm making scary stories about stuff at the bottom of the ocean, but things can't actually survive there. And then we find out that things can live there, and also they look really scary. Uh-oh.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance. An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill. I know not why my dreams were so wild that night. But ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more.
Movie Underwater is literally about finding Cthulhu. It goes about as well as you might think it would. Well, I feel like if you're going deep underwater to find Cthulhu, it can go bad in one of two ways. It can go bad in that you fail because being deep underwater is treacherous, or it can go bad in that you succeed.
Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again. And in the glow of the moon, I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
Let's climb the mound. Let's climb the mound.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world.
Oh, I like that they don't let you look down into it.
Peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night.
Never
Through
mind.
my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined. Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent.
Oh, I think this is a good idea to go in here.
Whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
Like, why would you not go in here? This seems like a good idea and won't lead you to become a morphine addict in the future.
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath.
But I guess you're being called by beings beyond your understanding or whatever, so whatever.
Gazing
It's
into the Stygian
fine.
deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
Oh, it does gleam whitely. I'm surprised that it's not progress to click on it.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express. For despite its enormous magnitude, and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
Sounds like a dessert. Would you like some archaeologist's delight? You could have, like, you know, like hard chocolate that you have to chisel away at to get to your little treat inside. The archaeologist's delight.
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures. The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books, consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Ooh, trivia. Dagon contains many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed in his later works, such as telling the story through carvings, journals and the characters' notes, islands emerging from the ocean, or fictional beings and deities based on real events and mythologies. It's also considered the origin of the popular Cthulhu mythos. Some of Lovecraft's other stories are also included in a manner similar to Dagon, but let's skip the details in order to not spoil the ending. Yeah, the whole idea is that eldritch horrors are like greater cosmic forces that are just exerting their will upon the world.
Plainly visible across the intervening water on account of their enormous size were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a No.A. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men, though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer. They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself. I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe.
Bro's like, they're so nasty, and meanwhile the guys out there watching him are like, yeah, and it was this tiny creature with these thin ugly lips and pallid skin.
Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born. Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it. With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters.
Oh, show.
Polyphemus-like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds.
It's just trying to keep its monolith safe from the nasty little creature it saw.
I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little. I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing. I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods. When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital, brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
We're back. Oh, trivia. Lovecraft was a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism. In 1915, he started publishing his own journal called The Conservative, which included political and social commentary, poetry, short stories, and literary criticism written by him and other authors. Howard was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticisms to heart, which resulted in his decision to step away from writing poetry and concentrate on weird fiction again for the first time since his teenage years. Dagon, which was published in 1919, is one of the short stories written during that period. In this example excerpt from The Conservative, the master of horror fiction explains his attitude towards warfare and the idea of world peace. Why any sane human being can believe in the possibility of universal peace is more than the conservative can fathom. Should the entire civilized world agree simultaneously to disarm, one or more nations would undoubtedly retain secret armaments, and at the proper time take advantage of their more altruistic and less astute contemporaries in a wild career of conquest against unarmed victims. No country is or ever can be above warfare, until the basic impulses of the human animals shall have miraculously changed. Yeah, I kind of get it. It's a cynical view of things, but I think I kind of agree, unfortunately. Hi, feces. We need to start becoming new types, like in Gundam, to have proper empathy. Hello, feces. What is it? Is there Lovecraftian horrors in our home? Because if there's not, then why are you bothering me? Come here. You want to finish the story with me? Cat is here.
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Dagon, was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. Oh, interesting. That makes sense. Just call the god of crops grain. Makes sense to me. The rulers of Akkad chose him as the patron saint of their war conquests. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in an Assyrian poem and an underworld prison warder in one of the Damn, this dude is working overtime. He's working like 5 jobs. Often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name. The word dag means fish. H.P. Lovecraft's work, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that resides in the oceans. It's worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. Deity got to deity? Listen, deity got to deity, but if people are like, oh, you're the god of fertility and crops, I'm like, okay. I mean, that's 2 things, but I'm a deity, I can handle 2 things. And then they're like, also, you're the patron saint of our war. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm still working on the fertility and crops over here. And then they're like, oh, also, you have to judge the dead and be the prison warder of the underworld. And I'm like, god damn! That's so many things. And then some dude in America in the future is like, yeah, this guy was a fish. Come on. I'd be pissed.
But soon perceiving
oh my god,
that he was
Necronomicon.
hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
I was gonna say, this has got to be the trivia. August Derleth was an American writer and anthologist, also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works through his company, Arkham House. Though he greatly contributed to the popularization of the author's work after his death, he's surrounded by numerous controversies. One of his most questionable decisions involved introducing the good versus evil doctrine. He was a devout Catholic to the Cthulhu mythos, which contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world and his approach to cosmic horror. As a result, the author's works are often misunderstood and misrepresented. It's also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. Interesting. Dude was the original Disney executive. The Lovecraft cinematic literary universe. We need to publish it. Hi.
It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing.
Maybe if your wallpaper of chili peppers didn't also look like tentacles, you'd be happier.
I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Oh, trivia. Lovecraft hated tobacco, even though he used to smoke when he was 12, in order to look and feel like an adult. In his correspondence with friend Reinhard Kleiner, he claims that he quit as soon as he started wearing long pants. It's crazy. He also had a very strong opinion about alcohol, as evidenced by his letter to Zelia Brown. As for the matter of drinking, I have never tasted intoxicating liquor and never intend to, having a strong aesthetic disgust at anything which blunts or courses the delicate natural equipoise of the evolved human intellect and imagination. Drinking excited my personal repugnance, hence I don't drink. Let the herd do what they will. I am rather in favor of prohibition, the prohibition of any one antisocial force as well as any other.
Often, I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm. A mere freak of fever as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man-of-war.
Nah, it was real.
This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
Oh no, not the Statue of Liberty.
The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it. It shall not find me. God, that hand! The window! The window!
I gotta jump. Just a moment, sir. Is there any trivia in your room as I plan my escape? Okay, no, let's jump. The little Ooh, what are these? That was cute. I think they've made a couple of these, but it's Oh,
And scary stories have been accompanying men for centuries.
What is this?
They have many faces and forms. But what is their purpose? Why do we enjoy being afraid so much? During our therapy, I'll try to...
Oh, I see. It's an ad. It's a cute little project to like put the short story into a little playable thing with little bits of trivia you can read. I think it's cute. Also, it's free. Well, that is Dagon. I do remember reading this like ages ago. When would that have been? Probably like, I think around like 2017. So like 8 years ago, I think I read a bunch of the short stories. Right, it's like, oh, there's bigger stuff than us. Although it is interesting that the things in Dagon are like human-like. Although I think that's part of the horror is when things are like humans but they're not human. It's scarier. But yeah, thanks for hanging out. That is the end of the game. What time is it? I have to start getting ready for work. That's the true horror. You know what would be really scary? If the guy woke up from that delirious, horrible vision and then someone was like, "Hello, sir. It's time for you to go to your job now." That's what would have been the real horror. Lovecraft wasn't as familiar with that, I guess. But yeah, thanks for hanging out, and I hope you have a good time of day. And if you find yourself in a plain of roiling mud and you see a huge mound in the distance, just hang out at your boat. No need to go take a look at that. Just chill with your boat. It'll become water again in a little while. But yeah, I'll catch you later. And until yawn. Bye.